Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Name One Player podcast. My name is Nicole. I am your host. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to thank every single person for hitting play today. If you like the Name One Player podcast, be sure that you are subscribed to the podcast on whatever platform you listen on. Be sure to have liked the show, rate the show. I personally think 5 stars makes the most sense, but I'm not going to tell you what to do, okay? And definitely be sure to be following the Name One Player podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Today's episode, we are chatting with our guest, Holly, who is the director of Hazze Sports. I'm not going to chat too much about it because I want Holly to explain all about what Hazze Media is, how she got the role of director of sports, and all about her experience and her background and what got her to where she is today in her career. It's a really fun conversation, a really cool and inspiring story, and I think you guys are going to love it. We also chat quite a bit about hockey, but because we talk about it so much, I was like, you know what? We need to reserve this for a full second episode, and that episode is going to be out later in the week. But I think let's just hop into today's episode, talking all about Holly and her background of working in sports. All right, everybody, without further ado, please welcome Holly. All right, everybody, we have Holly here with us today. Holly, how are you doing?
I'm doing so good. It is a beautiful morning. Totally not the weather here, but it's probably a beautiful morning somewhere.
I woke up because you're on the I'm on the West Coast, you're on the East Coast. It's 8 a.m. for me now, not like crazy early, but I woke up at 7 just to kind of get my morning going. I open my curtains, it's pitch black outside. Pitch black. And I'm like, what the hell is this? This is horrible.
No, yeah, that's how I feel now when it hits like 4 o'clock here. Like it's pitch black and I'm like, I feel like it's 10 p.m. and I want to go to bed like a grandma. And I can't because I'm usually working.
I know. Ugh, horrible. This is totally unrelated to everything. Are you a winter gal or are you a summer gal?
A hot take, I am a winter gal. I love the winter. I was a figure skater growing up,
Okay.
and I love the cold. I love a rink. I love when it's cold outside and it snows.
This is a great segue because I want to know more about you. I'm sure everybody who's hit play today and is listening wants to know more about you, but you've mentioned figure skating. You've mentioned being in the rink a lot. Let's hear a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, definitely. I started figure skating when I was 9 or 10. Don't quote me on that. And I competitively started about a year later, and I did solos. I did synchronized skating, which I love synchro. And I also did some dance kind of stuff. I ended up finding my niche probably around my freshman year when I just decided to go the solo route. I knew I was never going to make the Olympics or anything. I started A, way too late, and B, was just not talented enough for it. But I knew I loved skating and I loved being creative. So I did a lot of the artistic competitions where you'd like pick a theme or character and stuff. I also really loved doing improv, which is such a wild thing to say, but
Yeah,
skating improv is so fun.
I've never heard of that in my life.
It's like a subsection of competitions. I think it became something, I want to say like early 2000s, and it's like so fun to do. And it depends on kind of like the competition in the rink and stuff. Some will do like half the rink, they'll split it so that there's two people doing it at once. Some people don't.
Oh.
I loved it so much. I'm very creative and I'm not like the best skater. So if you tell me to like pull out some moves and some spins, that is my bread and butter in life. Don't tell me to jump. I can't jump.
Okay.
I can jump, but I don't like to. Funnily enough, at the same time, when I hit my freshman year of high school, I started doing color guard and winter guard, which is with the marching band. And I just got to spin sabers, rifles, flags, dance, all the fun things. I absolutely love color guard. Shout out to my coach, Roman Garcia, and Kate Anthony for being my rocks in life and getting me through high school and giving me a self-confidence that I needed to do things. I retired from figure skating my senior year of high school and actually wanted to do guard when I got to college at the University of Oregon. I decided to not do that at all. I wanted to be a regular student, funnily enough, and I joined a sorority. I joined Sigma Kappa at the University of Oregon, and I would remember waking up at 6 a.m. on game days and camping out with my friends to get seats in Autzen when we had tickets just on the goal line. I made it into like a little ESPN clip, I think, my freshman year, like 0.0005 seconds. And it was the proudest moment of my life, and I
As it
will
should
never
be.
cease to amaze myself that I looked so dumb in that. But I love Oregon. I love Eugene. I'm a huge UO football girly pop. I was there when Justin Herbert and Sabrina Escu were there, so that's just like always something I really love. Ended up transferring to the University of Maine my sophomore year and joining the figure skating team as well, helping found our competition team in the USFSA circuit, which was new. Collegiate skating has become a thing in the last like 10 years for solos, and then synchro's been going for a while. So that was really, really cool. And I loved it so much. Unfortunately, COVID cut my time a little short after my collegiate debut. And I ended up doing a lot of stuff for the university in athletics and club sports while COVID was going on and helping monitor like lacrosse and hockey and stuff. So that was really fun and kind of showed me that there's jobs in sports that you can do that aren't
Mm,
just like, being a statistician and stuff. So I really fell in love with that. I was also doing a lot of PR with our figure skating team. I ended up becoming president at one point too, but my love has always been in like the marketing girly pop era. And I was studying psychology and neuroscience, so I was like very much removed from my major in that point. I love psych, I love neuro, but I also just had a love for creative things and I wanted to kind of blend that if I could. So my senior year of college, I think I took on like 3 or 4 internships. I worked for Barstool as a viceroy for UMaine.
cool.
I also did a music internship with Tongue Tied, and then I think I was doing something else. But I loved how creative I got to be and integrate myself in different kinds of sports. Social media marketing became something I fell absolutely in love with. And I just was like, I want to do this the rest of my life. So I graduated and I got an internship at a social media marketing firm. And then I decided to apply for PhDs, masters, whatever. Got into Syracuse, which was beyond impressive and amazing. Newhouse is such a hard school to get into, so it was a very fulfilling moment to get into CUSE. And
Congratulations.
thank you, and be part of that program. And halfway through my program, I actually ended up moving to Vancouver because I got a job
Nice.
with the Vancouver Canucks in membership, and that was honestly the ride of my life. We went to playoffs that year. It's such an amazing team. Seriously, shout out to them. I miss them so much and try to keep in contact with them as much as I can. They are quite literally some of my favorite people in the world and taught me so much, not only about myself, but how to be obviously someone in a corporate job after like just straight graduating. I finished my master's while I was there actually, and then I walked in the spring, I think literally during round 2 of playoffs, which was so
No
wild. I
way.
missed one playoff game. I missed one. I promise. I worked the rest. I was very committed to the bid at that point, and then I ended up coming back to the States from Vancouver. I just had some family stuff going on that I needed to take care of, and through what I like to call rejection and redirection, I
Mm.
ended up texting Ezza over here at Hayes. She's the founder, and I said, "Hey, girl, can I start a sports section?" And she was like, "Yeah, of course. Let's meet about it tomorrow." I had no idea what I was doing. All I had was this idea of like, let's start a sports section. I remember staying up that night and just ripping through what I wanted it to be. And a lot of like what's behind Hayes Sports is from my own personal experience skating and doing other things. And then from like friends who are athletes now or in professional sports. And I wanted to kind of encompass my love of psych and also, PR and stuff too. And create a inclusive space for players and athletes and creators and all the fun things. People can tell their stories their way and in a safe space. So that's where I kind of am today. But
Girl, I love that. Okay, I'm like frantically writing as you are saying all of these things, and I don't even know where to start because I love everything that you said. First of all, Oregon football. I posted a TikTok. And also, too, everybody listening, we are still following the 2 episode a week format. So, Holly is going to be back on later in the week, and we're going to be talking about Canucks hockey, now that we know that Holly worked with the Canucks and just has that special connection with them. We are going to be talking about college hockey as well. And the reason I bring that up and Oregon football is because Holly and I were just talking before we hit record that college hockey in particular, but also really sports, it's such a different atmosphere in Canada than it is in the States. So we're going to get all into college hockey and the fact that you were at UMaine and they're a pretty big hockey school, and just get all into that because as a Canadian, I really have no idea about it. And I think it would be really interesting to dive into that topic. And now, I didn't tell you this before we hit record, but now I'm telling you now, Holly, and all the listeners, we will be getting into this improv skating in the next episode as well because I want to know more about that. That is so freaking cool. But the whole thing about Oregon football is that in the summertime, because again, college football, not really a huge thing in Canada, but I love the NFL. Like, I love it so much. But everybody's talking about college football and just how good it is. So I put out a little feeler. I was like, what team should I cheer for if I didn't go to school in the States? I really have no emotional connection to any school. And so many people recommended Oregon for me. And I really haven't followed along with what's been going on. I didn't pick a team because there was too much going on. I was like, man, I'll just generally follow along. But they were doing really, really, really well, like blowout wins, at least at the beginning of the season. I don't really know how they ended up, but I may become an Oregon girly.
I would like to influence you and say Sko Ducks.
Okay.
I love them. They just actually won their game against Washington last night. So,
Oh, I should have tuned in. That would have been a good one.
yeah, no, it was great. My one of my first memories at Oregon football was storming the field when we won. I think one of the first Washington games we had of the year at
That
home.
sounds so fun.
And if anybody at that school is watching this and they're trying to find anybody 4 years plus later, I
Get
did
it.
not storm the field with
That
everybody
did
in
not
that
happen.
stadium. No
No.
one in Autzen stormed the field that night. No, but I'm a huge Oregon football fan. It's so funny because people ask me all the time. They're like, "Did you go to Oregon?" And I'm like, "I did." But the loyalty always will lie. Like, that is my college football team. I'm a ride or die. My dad is in on it now. Like, my dad, when I was there, he was like, "I love this for you, and I will watch every game with you." So it's very monumental whenever Oregon plays Washington or Oregon State in this household. And then also we're big like Mish fans over Ohio State too. So
Okay.
yesterday's game was a little bit of a hard hurt in my
Yeah.
heart,
See, I
but
did
we're
watch that game. I did watch that game, and also too with this TikTok, the Michigan and Ohio fans, I was like, "This is scary. Like, whatever's going on here, like, this is terrifying." But then I was like, "Okay, I don't think I wanna cheer for either of those schools." And I was like, Oregon being on the West Coast, I mean, it's essentially 6 hours away from Vancouver, Canada, but I'm like, "You know what? It's doable if I ever feel like I wanna pop down for a game." But I want to get into how you mentioned that, unfortunately, after COVID, I loved what you said, the rejection into redirection, and COVID wasn't necessarily a rejection per se, but like just when things happen and you're like, oh, that really sucks, it does often lead you on another path that you wouldn't have expected yourself to be in. And I loved how you mentioned that it just opened up your eyes to how many different jobs there actually are in sports. And it sounds like you did so many different things. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that's really when your love for PR and media kinda got started. So I'd love to talk more about the roles that you had at that time and really just your whole time in college. I know you touched on you worked with Barstool and stuff, but how you mentioned your eyes were open to all of the different career opportunities. What sort of things did you realize existed that you didn't know existed?
Yeah, definitely. I think after, I made my collegiate debut and I think maybe 3 weeks later, like COVID was a thing. I remember getting the text from my dad. He's actually a prof in the same system that I went to school in. And
Okay.
he was like, "Oh, you're going home." And I'm like, what do you mean? No one said anything. I'm in like a biology lab right now. Like, you're lying to me, right? Like my lab TA doesn't even know. And I'm like, well, I can't tell anybody. And then he got the text and told everybody. So it was
Yeah.
okay. It was a very weird moment for me because I think I've said this about Yuming quite a bit, but I think I had found myself again in my love for skating while I was there.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to go from, having this freedom and skating again and, falling back in love of a sport that I learned to kind of hate over the years,
Mm.
from a lot of the shame that like judges would body shame you and stuff too. And if you're not that traditional skater, which I think that's something that obviously needs to change in skating in general, but that's like a totally other topic. But we all got sent home, obviously. I ended up coming back to campus in the fall for my junior year, and the, like, athletics, like, club sports stuff, they wanted COVID monitors for teams, and I was like, "You know what? If I can" it's a way out of my apartment. I had to get
Totally.
COVID tested every week anyways, so it was like, why not? So I signed up to do it. I think I, COVID monitored men's and women's hockey, men's and women's club hockey, club lacrosse, I wanna say did club soccer, which is funny because that's how I ended up playing club soccer about a year later. I think that's all the sports I did. But I loved it a lot. It let me be able to also watch everybody do their sport, and I never, like, really understood how people play lacrosse. And I learned a lot because I was doing lacrosse so much, apparently.
Yeah,
And it's really fun to see them kind of like play and stuff too. And I fell in love with it. And at the same time, I was doing PR for our skating team because that's all I could really do. We had very like little practices. They would be obviously canceled if someone on the team had COVID or, if they didn't have a COVID monitor. So I was trying to like bust ass essentially to promote our team and recruit and stuff. And that was something that I took really to heart and trying to create. I created a big little program for us so that older skaters can have a younger skater they can mentor, or
I
if they're
love
on the
that.
competition team, put them together. I was also doing a lot of like posts where I'd have other teams take over the account, talk about collegiate skating to kind of get the word out there. We did something with Scott Hamilton's foundation, which was really awesome. But I really loved making graphics and they were so bad. And please don't ever look at them deep in the archives if you're ever wondering.
Gotta
I
start
had,
some.
yeah,
Gotta
you got to
start.
start somewhere with a free Canva subscription, and I loved it so much. And by the time I hit my senior year, obviously I was president and then I was playing club soccer as well, just for fun because I loved it. Honestly, I applied for the Barstool internship purely just because I just wanted to see if I'd get it. And I
Yeah.
quoted Brianna LaPaggia in it with sleep when you're dead. And that was like a motto I had throughout college because I was always like studying or doing something. Like I was
Hmm.
not sleeping quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I quoted her, ended up getting it, and I ran UMaine checks for a really long time. I know, shocker to anybody who's from UMaine and listening. I had so much fun doing it, not only like working with the Chicks team and working obviously under Barstool itself is kind of an honor because that's like obviously, huge. I was the first chick to kind of have the full year of UMaine chicks, and I think I'd really account over like 7K or something within that year. And I had so much fun. And you learn a lot about marketing too. You learn a lot about campaigns, marketing yourself, what you can and cannot post. And it was just honestly great. And at the same time, I was also doing a music internship. So I was making content for that and kind of learning how to do photography and journalism and writing. And I've done a lot, but I think my niche is very much photography, journalism, marketing, that little sphere. I love front office stuff so much. Obviously, I did it at the Canucks too, and like working in membership, which is honestly the best. You learn a lot about customer service and you learn a lot about the fan base, and it's honestly such a great job. And if you're ever wanting to get into sports, please consider ticketing a membership. So fun. But I think for me, I lean more in the creative area where I can do a little bit more. So yeah, I think that's all the jobs that I had in college. That's wild to say.
I mean, that's a lot of jobs. But I loved what you said about how you really had to get creative with things, especially with COVID. And just listening to you, it really is crazy to think. And my question for you, I guess, is if COVID didn't happen and you didn't start being a COVID monitor for hockey, lacrosse, soccer, all of these things that, like you said, those sports weren't necessarily on your radar at this time, do you think you'd be where you are now?
That's such a hard question because I want to say maybe. You know what? I think the universe works in mysterious ways.
Sure.
So
I do think there is that element. Also, too, a question that is kind of impossible to answer. So good on you for answering that one. Thank you. Because it is true. It's like we don't really know what would have happened. COVID did happen. All these jobs that didn't exist before now did after those times. But I do agree that it's like I do think I was creeping. I told you this before I hit record. I was creeping the heck out of your website. Just reading that, like, you belong doing what you're doing. Like, you can tell this is just like what you are supposed to be doing. So I agree in a sense that it's like maybe it wouldn't have gotten you in that way with COVID, all this weird stuff, how the world just shut down. But I definitely do think there is this element of whatever is supposed to happen will happen, and you would have found your way there eventually. I want to talk about Has Sports, though. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Has?
it's actually Haze. So,
Hayes, right.
fun fact for anybody who's watching, because I think this is such a fun tidbit. My founder's name is Ezza. It's her name backwards. It took me
Oh
2 years, by the way, if anybody was like thinking that. 2 years. 2 years to figure that out.
that is hilarious. Okay, well, now we have the insider scoop, I guess
Insider
there.
knowledge. I hope she appreciates that little shout out to her. She's such a goat. I love her so much.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about Hayes, and then that is the coolest story, how you were just like, "Hey, I think I wanna design this whole subsection of the brand that doesn't exist yet, and I think you should let me run it." That is so ballsy, honestly, for lack of a better word, so confident. I love that. So first of all, let me and the listeners know a little bit about Hayes Media, and then also a little bit more into where this motivation came from, where this confidence came from to be like, I know what I want to do, and there's a space missing for it. And I think Hayes Media would be the perfect place to implement it.
Yeah, definitely. I know as I started Hayes, I think either 2020 or 2021 as an outlet for musicians, like people who shoot music photography and editorial photography, to have a place to publish it. A lot of, in the music industry as well, it's really hard to be able to shoot shows without having a backing publication. So I really like pat her on the back for that and to give her her flowers because I think she was still in high school when she technically started it. So
Wow.
she
Amazing.
is quite literally like such a woman boss. I actually joined Hayes as a music photographer and concert photographer and social media person back in 2022. So I've known Isaac for a little bit. I love being there. I've done some really fun stuff through Hayes, and then I took a bit of a break when I moved to Van just to kind of obviously get my footing there and understand kind of what was going on. And I was still kind of doing some stuff, and I didn't really talk to Ezra in a minute. And we were just talking. She was thinking about going to grad program. I just got back. I think she had just graduated at this point when I had texted her and I congratulated her, and I was like, really, really random, like, thought here. I was really down in the dumps. I was really depressed. I had applied for all these jobs. It was either just like, you're qualified, but we hired like internally, ghosted, or like they wouldn't pay you what you're worth. So I had just kind of sunk into this hole over that summer when I came back from Van, and I was like, well, am I not supposed to be doing what I'm doing? Was that just like a flash in the pan, like a fluke, whatever? And I texted her, I'm like, I have this really weird idea. Like, would you be open to something like that? And Ezra's a huge F1 fan, might I add. So, like, if you're ever needing, like, F1 knowledge, like, hit up my girl Ezra. She has some of the best F1 knowledge in the world.
I love it.
And she was like, yeah, I would love to start doing I've always been interested in doing, like, F1 stuff too. And, yeah, so I sat there and I was like, okay, well, now I have to figure out what I'm, like, creating out of this brand. How is it gonna be different? Like, do I want it to be something similar to what we have out there? And I kind of took what we have at Hayes already, obviously being editorial magazine and a place where concert photography stuff is. And I was like, I want to mesh it so it makes sense, obviously. And I wanted to take a lot of what I've experienced and other athletes have experienced and make it very us. And I think the conglomeration of, being able to tell your story the way you want to tell it and without the statistics behind it and who you are as a human, humanizing athletes essentially, is kind of the best thing I could come up with. And it meshes the psyche and the creativity. I think that's a big thing for me is that, if I was competing at a pro level or even in college, being just seen as a statistic, I wouldn't feel so confident in myself. And like, I viewed myself like that when I was skating. I was like, "Oh, I'm not good enough for that. So I'm gonna score low and I'm not gonna be going to nationals or something." And that was always something that I think weighed on me quite a bit. But we've had some great stories be told, and I'm very grateful for everyone who's sat down with me or some of my colleagues to talk about it.
That is so cool. I love that. And I just loved how you said to humanizing athletes. I think that is so important and kind of ties in well to a lot of the conversations that I've had on the Name One Player podcast before. And that relates to how there's a lot of women who become sports fans because they might see an interview or something or see an athlete talking about something that's human, that's real, that's not just the stats on the sport that they play. So I love to hear that you really are emphasizing that real humanness of these athletes because I totally agree. They are more than numbers, and giving them that space to share, I think is so important. So really cool that you did that. I have a question for you about photography though, because I feel like you didn't really get too far into when this started, how this started for you. So I'm so curious because the shots that you do really are so freaking like beautiful. Honestly, they're art. Like I'm not being funny. They're truly art. You're very, very, very talented. Where did this come from?
First off, that means the world, so thank you. Because I have really
You're
bad
welcome.
imposter syndrome when I'm shooting. I don't know why. I think everyone has it, but
Yeah.
I've always been someone who really likes cameras. I think I got my first like little camcorder when I was 6 or
Oh, that's
something,
cute.
and it does not work anymore, but I love her. But I got my first like professional camera, DSLR, not like a professional, but like up there. I think I was a freshman in high school. I got that for Christmas. It was one of the best gifts I've ever received. It was like a cherry red Nikon DSLR 3200, and I loved her. I took photos on her for like all the most random things. I remember taking my brother's prom photos, and I was like, I don't think I want to do this, but like it was fun. I think I really started taking it seriously when I was a senior in college. I did a lot of like concert photography stuff. So I did Nessa Barrett. I've done Jaden. I think Nessa was like a really fun one for me because that I got to play with a lot of color and stuff. I did Kelsey Carter, which was super fun. I did Delwater Gap, and a few others at Gov Ball, which was some of my favorite stuff. I knew that I really loved taking photos. I just didn't know the niche in which I wanted to specialize in, I guess, for a while. And I loved concert photography, but I have friends who are so talented in it that I'm like, I will give you that crown. Please take it. This is probably not my niche, but you kill it every time. And obviously I've played sports for a while, and I knew as a figure skater, I never got good. No one ever gets good photos because no one ever takes photos when you want them to take photos. And this is something I'm going to get on my soapbox about for a second is
Oh my god, please do. That's such a good freaking point. Go on.
if
Soapbox
you
is
are
yours.
if you are capturing figure skating, please, 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 if anyone's doing like bowers, spirals, anything where you can see them actually do the move, please take a photo. That's all we ask. If
Yeah.
I'm mid jump and I'm making the ugliest face in the world or mid spin, please don't take a photo of me. And if you did, please don't show me, because that is one of the biggest, like, I don't want to call it like an ick, but it's like one of the biggest frustrations in my life, and especially with my friends too. We're like, look through our photos during competition, and we're like, I look so bad, and like it's a good photo otherwise. So that's my soapbox there for a second. I shot my first game, funnily enough, for my alum, Humane, at the homecoming game against Quinnipiac 2024. And it was so fun. It was so cool. Being able to be there in my barn, because I love the Alphond, was just such a surreal experience. And I already knew how to edit, but I wanted to take it up a notch. Obviously, with sports, it's a lot more fast paced. Hockey's extremely fast paced, obviously, and I have quite a good background in it, so I'm able to follow the puck pretty easily. And I think a lot of people are like, how do you do that?" And I'm like, I have really good hand eye and also really good puck eye, I guess. I'm always really able to capture a lot of action. I do shoot a lot. I take probably like 5,000 photos a game. I'll probably edit 1 to 200, and I'll post like 20. But I
Oh my god.
overshoot.
5,000, that's crazy.
That's, like, I think on the low end, but I'm someone who's, like, always in continuous mode. Like, I know people are gonna be like, "That's so dumb," and, like, "You should just capture." I don't care. I learned as a concert photographer, and I keep
Yeah.
it. And I love
Yeah,
it because I'm able to get really cool moments that you would just, like,
totally.
react really fast to, and I really love hockey, obviously, like, being a figure skater, and then also, like, my dad played actually through his PhD and stuff, and, I have friends who play, so I've always really felt close to the rink, and it's always a really fun thing to do, and I've shot a lot of hockey, AHL, ECHL, NCAA. Also started baseball this summer, which was super fun. Baseball's a lot slower, obviously. So it's a little bit easier to kind of not be in continuous shutter. But I think I've been able to hone a lot of my craft from shooting hockey because it's fast paced. It's a lot of quick seconds and stuff too. And I think as well as I'm someone who doesn't like to take traditional hockey photos. I will say I'm not someone who's always taking the same photo. I'm looking for moments that are quite different. So I really like composition and stuff too. Like if it's weird composition or it looks editorial, or I think like, hey, if I take this shot on continuous and just like see which one I get and I can edit it in any which way, I'm gonna do it. And I really love popping colors. A big thing for me in my editing process too is I always add a little tinge of blue. It's like a little nod to my alma mater, actually. That's why I do it. So shout out you Maine for that. You guys get your little nod in my blue. But I always have a little bit of a cool tone photo just to as my little signature because I thought why not give a little nod to the place I started. So
Totally. Okay, that is so cool. I wrote down traditional and circled it because that's how you said, your photography maybe isn't the most traditional, especially when it comes to hockey. And I think like I didn't realize that that's exactly what it was, but when I was looking at your photography, there is something different about it, and I think it's just unique. It's not the traditional hockey photos that you see all the time. There is something different about it, and maybe because you're getting 5,000 shots on the low end, you're able to get more of these shots that aren't just like you're going and getting that specific shot that kind of everybody gets, and just hearing the work that goes into it. So funny though that you said about, your figure skating pictures. And I didn't do figure skating or anything. I did cheerleading though growing up. And it's the same thing. You like run off the stage and you're so excited to like look at your pictures, or you get them emailed to you or whatever, and they're bad. They're all so bad, but so cool that you're able to kind of use that experience of being the athlete and knowing when the right moment to take that picture to get the best photo where the athlete is very happy with it as well. And I just think that's amazing that you have that perspective and you're able to pull that into your work. I was going to say I loved what you said. I don't love it because it was sad about how you're like, I left Vancouver and I was just a bit in the dumps. I was feeling depressed. You were getting a lot of no's, getting a lot of rejection. That's never easy to deal with. But you took those moments and you're like, no, I'm going to create something. And you mentioned a few times that you're a very creative person. And I can really tell just from your story that you shared that you'll find something and you'll create something beautiful out of it. So for people who are getting met with a lot of no's and need to get creative, do you have any advice maybe for building up your confidence on just how to create those opportunities for yourself, getting the confidence to put yourself out there and ask for what you want?
Yeah, definitely. I will say this is going to sound so cheesy, and I say it so much, but in Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott way, I gotta say, you're gonna miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I had found out through doing like a lot of PhD application stuff that I really do live by that. A lot of the way I've been able to do what I've done is taking a chance on myself and just believing in myself. And honestly, I had 0 confidence when I was in high school, like, absolutely 0, like, little to none, and I think when I got to my senior year, I had a great, great, great coach, and his name was Roman Garcia, and till the end of time, like, he is one of the most amazing people in my life, and I could not say anything higher about him. He really showed me that I am worth every second of this day and that I have power to do things. He is, I don't know the reason, probably I'm so confident now and I'm able to take a lot of chances. So, like, seriously, huge shout out to him. But, being able to just say you did it rather than going, what if? And I think that's always like such a big question in people's minds is, what if I did this or what if I did that? And, you know, I've gone to therapy, other people have gone to therapy. Obviously, I studied how to do cognitive behavioral therapy and ABA and all these other things in college. And I think always a really big lingering question for everybody is what if? What if I did this? What if I did that? And I think I took a lot of that when I was in and went, what if I flip it? What if I just did it and just see what the outcome is? I think that's how I've been able to do so much of this stuff. And honestly, especially if you want to get into sports, it's hard. It's a niche field. Sometimes people are kind of cliquey. Some people don't want to see you rise, but you kind of just have to push your way in. I really strongly advocate to take a chance on yourself because you don't know what you can do with it. And I'm going to tell you right now, right here, I did not think I was getting a job at the Canucks. I was just grateful to be a part of the process. And I think that's something that I'm really grateful to as well is that I learned so much in Vancouver about pushing yourself and making yourself better and standing up for yourself and understanding people. And I think that's what's pushed me to just do it and understand that it's okay to take chances. It's okay to be creative. Like, if you're like, I want to start the podcast. Do it. Just start writing down episode ideas. Or if you want to take photography lessons or be a journalist, start writing about things you love or take photos of things you think are cool. If you want to get into social media, start an account where you do stuff for socials or maybe reach out to help run a family account or a friend's account or whatever. There's so many avenues to get started and do things, and experience is experience at the end of the day. Doesn't matter if it's in sports at the beginning, it doesn't matter if it's in sports right now. All that really matters is that you're taking a chance and growing and continuing to learn because that's what people want to see is that you're continuing to do stuff and that you're going to be an asset to them, but you're also understanding that you yourself are an asset. And if people don't appreciate that, then it's time to move on from that. I guess is the
Woo!
best way.
That is bars right there. I love that. That was an amazing answer, so thank you. You know, it's so funny. I honestly forgot about that quote, and you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I do often think like the or Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, and now we'll add Holly behind it. But it is so true. Honestly, when you think about that quote, it is such a simple quote, but it really can be your philosophy for life, and I think it really will take you a lot of places. So I am so happy that you came on today and you shared all about the shots that you took, and the ones that landed and the ones that didn't. Also, two shots, literally with your photography. There you go.
Just realized that. Wait, no, that's actually great.
All right, Holly, my last question for you for this episode, because we do have a whole other episode coming up that I'm super excited to talk more about hockey, college hockey, the NHL, and figure skating. Gonna be great. Also, too, I want to talk to you about fantasy hockey, and that's gonna be a whole lengthy conversation. I'm excited to get into that. But my last question for you for this episode, obviously, the name of the podcast is called Name One Player. I used to talk about football quite a bit on Twitter and the amount of times that I would get asked to name one player. So I just kind of got fed up with those instances and just being in those situations where it was pretty obvious that my gender was kind of leading those questions, or people would see the fact that I was a woman and just have a different opinion of the validity of how I love sports, essentially. So I thought, let's make this podcast and let's get women to share their stories of times like that so we can poke a little bit of fun at it, reclaim it, kind of put a positive spin on it. So my question for you, Holly, do you have any name one player type of vibe stories in your tons of experience working in sports and just loving sports that you would like to share today?
God, I probably have so many. I'll generalize it, I guess, is the best way of putting it. I have a lot of hockey knowledge, and obviously, I think a lot of people, well, I think now they're probably like, yeah, she has hockey knowledge. I think back in the day, people were like, this 5'4" girl who looks like she listens to the most alternative music in the world does not have any hockey knowledge, And as someone who is a self-proclaimed UMaine fan as well, would just like to say, as well as a divided household, Canucks and Leafs, because my dad's Canadian,
Okay.
my mom's Canadian, mom's from Van, dad's from Toronto. I grew up watching a lot of this stuff. I was watching the draft one year and I correctly knew, except for maybe one person, who was going to go where, and just based off of vibes and a lot of like the reading and stuff too. And stats coming in from junior teams and colleges and stuff. And a colleague of mine was like, wow, you really know a lot compared to a lot of the other girls here. And I'm like, well, that's why I'm here,
Here.
like I can name you every player on this board and probably tell you at least one statistic or one interesting thing about them, why they're in that position and how they're going to benefit that team. Name one player was the next question. And oh God, who was it? I think it was Adam Fantilli or something. I don't
Okay.
remember, but I feel like it was Adam Fantilli or someone else, maybe Leo Carlson around that era. And I think I rattled off quite a bit, and I shocked that person. It was so funny too, because they're like, you stayed here for like the whole time. And I'm like, I'm interested. I'm invested, like, where is everyone going to go? This is going to help me with my fantasy lineup, if they make it the first year. And obviously I watch a lot of AHL hockey now too, ECHL. I really love AHL hockey. I think it's so awesome and definitely underrepresented in the sense of like more people need to watch, AHL and ECHL games. They're great.
I love that. How somebody was like, oh, you know a lot about hockey. And you're like, yeah, that's why I'm here. Like, why do you think? And I mean, of course, people can sit in games or whatever and not know anything. That's totally fine too. But like the fact that you're showing up and you're involved with the teams, and there's usually going to be a reason that you're there. And it's because you got hired or you did an interview and they thought, of course, yeah, there's the skill component, but having that hockey knowledge is helpful. And even if you start a job with zero hockey knowledge, but even if you know nothing, if you are there working, you are bound to know at least one player. You're bound to know something. Like the fact that they're kind of diminishing that is a little bit crazy, but good on you for, remaining calm. composed. I have no doubt that you wouldn't, but sometimes it's hard to in those moments.
Funnily enough, I think I had someone come up to me the other d like, I think a couple months ago and ask me about I was watching preseason Canucks versus Seattle Kraken hockey. I remember this. I was at a hometown bar with friends, and I asked the bartender, I'm like, "Hey, can you do me the biggest favor? Can you put on that preseason game? Because I just really wanna see." And he's like, "Yeah, sure," like, and then these guys look over, they're like, "You watch hockey?" And I'm like, I do. I do. This is why I'm asking to put on this preseason game that means nothing to anybody. And also so I can see what's going on, what the depth looks like right now, who might be pulled up, you know?
Well, okay, so which NHL team is closest to you where you're living now?
Right now it's the Bruins, and I do have loyalty to the Bruins, and I know someone's gonna say something like, you can't be a Vancouver fan and also be a Bruins fan. And I know. But Jeremy Swayman plays on the Bruins, and he's a UMaine alum. And I had this problem
Okay.
when I worked in Vancouver. I went to a Bruins versus Vancouver. And they said, if you wear any Bruins gear, I'm going to disown you. And
Yeah,
I said,
that'd be pretty
okay,
crazy.
but
Eh,
here's the thing. I am a fan of both separated. Okay. Like it's okay. Which
okay.
is, someone's going to get so mad that I said, and I know the riots and everything, but like Bruins hockey is so historical and great. And then obviously like Van hockey is amazing. And it's like, I love them so much. I'll never be
Yeah.
a Leafs fan, but
Okay. Okay.
sorry to my dad. I know he like really is still upset that I'm not a Leafs. I love players on Leafs. I just will
Yeah.
never devote myself to the Leafs as a Van fan and as a Bruins fan. But yeah, they are the closest team to me.
Okay, well, we will definitely be getting more into that in the next episode. That is a little bit wild. I'm not sure if I've ever heard anybody say that, but when you mentioned to me, and we will talk more about this too, about how you were shooting the game at Harvard. So I was like, oh, you must be in Boston. Like, I wonder what that's like if, being around the Bruins. I did not think that there's any way that you could be a Boston fan. So I'm so excited to get into that conversation. Everybody listening, if the episode isn't out already, get excited for it because it's coming. We're going to have a good conversation about hockey. But if it is already out, definitely go and listen to that and hear how a little bit more how the heck Holly is a Canucks and a Bruins fan. I'm excited to hear more about it. But Holly, thank you so much for coming on today. I learned honestly so much just about photography and working in sports in general, and again, just so cool how you were able to create these opportunities for yourself, get creative, and everything that you're doing with Hazze Media is just so cool, and creating this separate section with Hayes Sports and amplifying these athletes' voices and humanizing them more, I think is so important. And I'm just so excited to see what you continue to do with all of your work in sports. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun, and I can't wait to get flamed in these comments for that
Oh,
commentary that I just
we're gonna get into this. I'm excited. We're gonna hit stop and then we're gonna hit start right away and we're gonna get into hockey. Thanks, Holly.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much to Holly for coming on. What a great conversation. I feel like I always forget about that quote. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That is so true. I'm going to be keeping that in mind. Really, when it comes to everything, I think that's such great advice. If you want to listen to part 2 of the conversation that I have with Holly, all about hockey, college hockey, the National Hockey League, fantasy hockey, we get all into that in our next episode, part 2. So definitely go and check that out. All right, everybody, that is enough from me today. Again, thank you so much for listening today. It means the absolute world to me. Definitely let me know what you thought of the conversation with Holly and if you think it's crazy that she's a Bruins fan and a Canucks fan, because I think that's a little bit wild, but we are going to get into it in the next episode. So definitely be sure to listen to that conversation as well. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day and a lovely rest of your week. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye.